My 7-year-old daughter was 3 chairs away in her purple dress, feet swinging because they didn't reach the floor. And my dad looked me dead in the eyes in front of 18 people and said, "You were never really part of this family. Ask your mom why." The room went so quiet I could hear the ceiling fan. Then my daughter tugged my sleeve with her small fingers and asked the question that broke something open in my chest I don't think will ever fully close. "Mommy, are we not family?" 18 people heard that. 18 people heard a 7-year-old ask that at the Thanksgiving dinner table I had set, under the lights I had hung, after a meal I had been cooking since 4:30 that morning. But here's the thing nobody saw coming. Not my dad, not my brother, not a single person at that table except one tiny 84-year-old woman sitting quietly at the far end, both hands resting on a cracked tan leather purse in her lap. My grandmother, Grammy Evelyn, stood up. And what she pulled out of that purse ended 25 years of lies in under 2 minutes. "I'm Sandra. I'm 34 years old and I'm a licensed physical therapist living in Garland, Texas, a suburb just outside of Dallas. This is the story of the Thanksgiving that turned my entire life upside down and then somehow right side up again. If you are new here, welcome. Hit that subscribe button and stay with me because this story gets so much deeper before it gets better. I promise every word of it is true. Let me take you back to the week before that dinner because none of what happened makes sense unless you understand the life I was living going into it. I work at a rehabilitation center on the east side of Garland. 7 years now. It's the kind of job that's hard to explain to someone who's never done it. Watching a person go from being unable to lift their own arm to walking out the door on their own 2 feet. It's meaningful. It's also exhausting in a way that gets into your bones over time. I have a daughter named Maya, 7 years old. She has my stubbornness, her daddy's laugh, and a very strong opinion about everything from which cereal is the best to why purple should count as a neutral color. Her father moved out of state 4 years ago. He calls on birthdays. Sometimes. So it's mostly just me and Maya, living in a 2-bedroom apartment in Mesquite, Texas, about 15 minutes from the house on Cloverdale Road where I grew up. That house. I need to tell you about that house. It's a 2-story red brick place with a wide front porch and a big pecan tree in the backyard that my grandfather Harold planted the year he came home from Korea. My grandparents, Harold and Evelyn Calloway, bought it in 1966 with cash from Harold's military benefits. The deed has always been in Evelyn's name. Always. Harold insisted on that. He said a house should belong to the woman who makes it a home. Grammy Evelyn is 84 years old. 5 feet 1 inch. She wore the same beige cardigan to every family dinner for as long as I can remember. She carried a big tan leather purse everywhere she went, cracked along the zipper, soft as an old baseball glove. Inside that purse, reading glasses, a photo of Harold in uniform, a tube of chapstick she never actually used, a picture of me the day I was born, and something else. Something she had been keeping for 25 years. I didn't know about it until Thanksgiving. My parents are Robert and Carol. Dad is 61. Mom is 59. My brother Danny is 31. He has lived in that house on Cloverdale Road his entire life. As far as I can tell, he has never once paid a utility bill. Grammy Evelyn lived in a small 3-room cottage behind the main house, a little guest house Harold built back in the 80s. After Harold passed, she moved into the cottage and let Dad and Mom take over the main house. She never transferred the deed. The house stayed in her name. I don't think my dad ever stopped to verify that. Or maybe he assumed it didn't matter. It mattered. More than he could possibly imagine. I had been paying my dad $500 a month for 2 years. He called it a household contribution. The reason he gave was that Maya used the bathroom at the main house sometimes, that it covered groceries when she ate dinner there, wear and tear. I didn't argue. I wrote the check every single month because I needed access to that house for Maya's after-school care. There is no childcare in that part of Garland open past 6 in the evening that doesn't cost more than my car note. Grammy Evelyn was it. She loved having Maya there. She would teach her card games, read to her, let her stay up 30 minutes past her bedtime, and then wink at me when I came to pick her up, like the two of them had a secret neither one was giving up. What I didn't find out until everything exploded was that my dad had been telling my mom the amount was $250 a month. He pocketed the other $250 every month for 2 years. That's over $6,000 he took from me while I was skipping lunch at work and buying the store brand version of everything so Maya could have the name brand apple juice she loved. The week before Thanksgiving, he called to tell me he needed to raise the contribution to $750 a month. I said, "Dad, that's more than Danny pays and Danny actually lives there." His voice went flat. It always went flat when I said something that didn't fit the story he told himself about our family. "Danny's family," he said. "That's different." Different. That one word had been following me my whole life like a shadow with no light attached to it. Every single time he said it, something clenched in my chest and then slowly released, like a fist that had learned to open even when it didn't want to. I said yes. I needed Grammy Evelyn's house for Maya. My entire work schedule depended on it. My dad knew exactly where the lever was. He always had. 2 days after that phone call, I stopped by Cloverdale Road to grab Maya's school backpack. I was in the hallway when I heard Danny on the phone in the living room, talking to his girlfriend Kayla. "Once the house transfers to me, I'm gutting the upstairs and turning it into a rental. Grammy can have the sunroom." I stood there with Maya's little backpack in my hand and didn't move. Grammy can have the sunroom. Grammy Evelyn, who had lived on that property for nearly 60 years, who had planted every rosebush along the back fence with her own hands, who still kept Harold's coffee mug on the second shelf of the kitchen cabinet because she couldn't bring herself to move it. Danny was already remodeling a house that wasn't his to touch. I didn't say anything. I buckled Maya into the car and drove home with my hands tight on the wheel. But there was one thing Danny didn't know. One thing none of them had ever bothered to check. That house had never belonged to my dad. Not for a single day of his life. 3 days before Thanksgiving, Aunt Patrice called me at 9:30 at night. Patrice is 57, my dad's younger sister, a retired high school art teacher, lives alone in a little house off the main road near the Mesquite Public Library. She is one of those women who says exactly what she means, and she had never in my 34 years called me sounding the way she sounded that night. Careful. Deliberate. Like she was placing each word down gently and didn't want to disturb the ones around it. "Has your dad talked to you about the house lately?" she asked. "He brought it up a few weeks ago," I told her. "Why?" Silence. I could hear her breathing. "Just be there Thursday. And sit close to your grandmother at dinner. Okay?" "Therese, what is going on?" "I can't say more right now. Just be there. Promise me." I promised. I wrote it on a sticky note with a black marker and pressed it to my bathroom mirror so I'd see it every morning. Thursday. Sit near Grammy Evelyn. The next afternoon I was loading groceries into my trunk at the Kroger on Gus Thomason Road. 14 bags for a Thanksgiving dinner I'd been cooking for this family every year for 10 years, when I spotted my dad coming out of a law office on the main strip. He had a large brown envelope tucked tight under his arm, the stiff legal kind. When I called out to him, he turned. His face went completely blank. "Dad, what are you doing at the lawyer's office?" "None of your business, Sandra." He got in his truck and pulled away. I stood in that parking lot with grocery bags in both hands, watching his taillights disappear, and I felt it, that cold feeling that settles low in your chest when something is coming. Something that's been building underground for a long time. You can feel it in your feet before you can see it with your eyes. I should have pressed harder right then. I didn't. Thanksgiving morning. 4:30 a.m. I was up. I drove to Cloverdale Road with Maya still in her pajamas and her hair in 2 loose braids, half asleep in the car seat. I had a brine turkey ready, sweet potato casserole, fresh green beans, from-scratch cornbread dressing, cranberry sauce, 2 pecan pies, and a pan of rolls. Maya had helped me measure flour for the night before. By 6 the oven was running. By 8, the whole house smelled like butter, brown sugar, and sage. By 10, I had 4 things on the stove and 2 in the oven, and my feet were already hurting. My mom came into the kitchen around 9:30, set out a stack of plates and some napkins, about 12 minutes of work, then went to the living room to watch TV. That was her contribution. Danny arrived at noon with a 2-liter of store-brand cola. He handed it to Mom like he'd brought flowers. My dad looked at Danny, then looked directly at me in my apron with a spoon in my hand, and said loud enough for the whole kitchen to hear, "Now that's a man who knows how to show up for his family." I had been on my feet for 6 hours. 12 dishes going. I didn't say a word. Maya helped me fold napkins. She was careful and serious about it, pressing each corner the way I'd shown her. We set 18 places in the dining room together, family, neighbors, old friends from Harold's church. Grammy Evelyn came in from the cottage around 10, moving slow but steady, tan purse over her arm as always. She put her hand on my shoulder. "You've got your daddy's eyes, baby," she said. "The good version of him lives right in you." I smiled. I thought she was just being sweet. I had no idea she was leaving me a clue. By 5 o'clock, 18 people were around that long table. The Hendersons from next door. Uncle Chester and his wife Rhonda. Church folks. Cousins. Kayla in a sundress with a smile that felt like she already knew something she wasn't supposed to. My dad sat at the head of the table in a button-down shirt. He never wore a button-down to Thanksgiving. He wore flannel every year without fail. But that night he had a pressed button-down and that brown legal envelope tucked under his chair. I noticed the corner sticking out when I walked past carrying the turkey platter. Mom sat to his left, quiet. She had reapplied her lipstick twice in the past hour. She only did that when she was nervous. I noticed. Danny sat across from her, Kayla beside him with her hand already close to his arm. And Patrice sat on my right. She had saved me the seat. She touched my arm once when I sat down. Just once. Didn't say anything. On my left, Maya in her purple dress, feet swinging, perfectly happy. Grammy Evelyn sat at the opposite end of the table from my dad. Her purse was in her lap, not under the chair, not on the floor. In her lap. Held in both hands. Like a woman at an airport who knows exactly when her flight boards. Pastor Ray Henderson, Harold's oldest friend, sat halfway down the table. 72 years old. White-haired. The kind of still that comes from a long life. He said grace. Heads bowed. I peeked. My dad's eyes were open. And they were fixed on me. Then he stood up. "Before we eat, I have something to share with this family." Everyone put down their forks. Grammy Evelyn kept eating her roll. "I've been thinking a long time about this house and what it means to the Calloway name. I've made a decision. Danny is going to receive the house. I had the papers drawn up this week. It's time this property stayed in the right hands. Real family hands." He said real family like it was a combination lock. Like only certain people had the code. Danny looked up with the face of a man who had practiced his surprised expression in the mirror. Kayla squeezed his arm. Uncle Chester set down his fork slowly. Rhonda stared at the tablecloth. Patrice picked up her water glass and held it without drinking. Mom started quietly shredding her paper napkin under the table. I could see her hands moving. I kept my voice completely level. "Dad, what exactly do you mean by real family?" He turned his whole body toward me. Didn't lower his voice. Spoke at full volume, the volume of a man who wanted every single person at that table to hear every single word. "You know what I mean, Sandra." "No." "Say it clearly." "Right here in front of everyone." He had expected me to go quiet. I could see it, the slight lean forward, the flicker of confidence behind his eyes. 34 years of me backing down had given him that expectation. Tonight was different. "Fine." His voice dropped but didn't disappear. Your mom told me the truth 25 years ago. You are not my biological daughter. Someone else fathered you. I raised you out of obligation. But this house, this name, that is Calloway blood. And it belongs to Danny. He spread his hands wide like a man waiting for applause. A gasp from Rhonda. Chester shook his head. Mrs. Henderson pressed a hand to her mouth. Mom pushed her chair back. Nowhere to go, hemmed in by the table, the wall, and 25 years of choices that had all been leading here. I looked at her. Mom! Is it true? Her mouth opened. Closed. Her eyes went to Dad, to Danny, to the table, anywhere but my face. I'm sorry, Sandra. It's complicated. Complicated enough to ruin my life for 25 years? She flinched. My dad slapped the table. Water glasses shook. A roll bounced off a plate. See, she admits it. That's why you get the house, son. You've always been different because you are. Danny went pale. Wait, what? You mean Sandra's not? She's not actually my real. Never was, my dad said. Almost proud. Pastor Ray leaned forward. Robert, this is not the time. This is exactly the time. My house, my family, my decision. My house, my family, my decision. 3 words that told you everything about who this man was and how he saw the people around him. I looked at Mom one last time. The last chance she'd ever get from me at that table. Mom, look at me. Is it true? 4 seconds. 5. Her chin started to shake. I'm so sorry, Sandra. Not a denial. Not an explanation. An apology shaped exactly like a confession. That was the moment I stopped waiting. My dad pulled the brown envelope from under his chair and dropped the deed transfer papers on the table with a hard thud. Danny, sign it. Let's make this official. Danny looked at the papers. Looked around the table. Not one face encouraging him. Not one nod. Kayla tugged his sleeve. Baby, maybe not right now. Danny sat back. My dad was losing the room and he could feel it. So he did what controlling men do when their audience slips. He reached for the one person he'd always been able to use. Carol. His voice cracked like a whip. Tell them everything. Mom stood behind her chair, both hands gripping the back of it, knuckles white, like a woman standing at the edge of something very high. She looked at me. I gave her nothing. No rescue. No anger. Just my face, open and waiting. 'Cause I needed to see, right in front of everyone, what she would choose. I'm sorry, Sandra, she said again. Not yes. Not no. Just I'm sorry. I had heard that my entire life and accepted it as enough. Not tonight. Okay, I need to stop right here for just a second. Because in that moment, Maya pulling my sleeve, 18 people watching me, I had about 4 seconds to decide who I was going to be. Old Sandra would have grabbed her daughter and walked out crying. Would have sat in the parking lot at midnight replaying every word and hating herself for not saying more. I had been doing exactly that my whole life. But Patrice had called me 3 nights before and told me to sit near Grammy Evelyn. And Grammy Evelyn was sitting at the far end of that table with her purse in both hands and the kind of stillness that only belongs to someone who has been waiting a very long time for a very specific moment. So I stayed. Before I tell you what happened next, and I promise what happens next will absolutely shock you, I want to ask you something. If you've ever been made to feel like an outsider in your own family, drop a comment right now. Just say, I felt that. 'Cause I know I am not the only one who has sat at a table and felt completely invisible to the people who were supposed to love them most. And if this story is connecting with you, please hit that like button. Genuinely helps more people find this channel and find stories that make them feel less alone. Okay. Back to that dining room. I walked to Patrice, placed Maya in her arms, kissed my daughter on the forehead, and walked back to my spot. I did not sit down. I stood. You've been hinting at this my whole life, I said. So say all of it. Right now. Every single word. My dad laughed. Short, dry, the laugh he used when he wanted to seem untouchable. I don't owe you anything. You just told 18 people I'm not part of this family. You owe every person at this table an explanation. That landed. I watched it land. I saw his shoulders shift, his jaw tighten. He looked around the room. Chester. The Hendersons. Pastor Ray. Not one face gave him what he needed. Not one. He turned back to me, voice climbing. You want to know why I never treated you the same? 'Cause you're not the same. Your mom was with another man. You are the proof of it. Mrs. Henderson covered her mouth. Rhonda turned away. One of the cousins pushed back from the table and then didn't know where to go. I heard Maya whimper against Patrice's shoulder. And then I heard it. The sound of a chair being pushed back. Slow. Deliberate. Wood scraping on hardwood at the far end of the table. I turned. Grammy Evelyn was standing up. I need you to understand what that meant. Grammy Evelyn uses a cane to walk from her cottage to the main house most days. She hadn't stood up at a family dinner without help in 3 years. Her knees had been bad since Harold passed. She stood up that Thanksgiving like she was 45 years old. Like she had been saving every bit of strength left in her body for exactly this one moment. 18 people went completely still. Every head turned toward the far end of the table where this tiny 84-year-old woman was rising from her chair with her spine perfectly straight, like the only solid, unmovable thing left in that room. Sit down, Robert. Not loud. Didn't need to be. It was the voice of a woman who had made a decision a long time ago and was simply finally carrying it out. My dad opened his mouth. I said, sit down. He sat. 61 years old, and the reflex was still in his body. The boy obeying before the man could think. Grammy Evelyn reached into that tan leather purse. Her fingers were steady. She pulled out an envelope. Yellowed at the edges. Folded so many times over so many years that the paper had gone soft as cloth at the creases. She held it up, just high enough for the whole table to see. I have kept this for 25 years, she said. Her voice was clear, and even the way a teacher's voice sounds when the room finally goes quiet and what she has to say actually matters. 25 years I watched you treat that girl like she was nothing. Like she was somebody else's mistake you were generous enough to tolerate. She looked at my dad. Only at my dad. I made a promise to Harold that I would wait until you showed everyone at this table exactly who you really are. She paused. Tonight you finally did. She carried the envelope to the center of the table. Set it right between the cranberry sauce and the cornbread dressing. Right on top of the tablecloth I had ironed at 5 that morning. Open it, Robert. Or I'll open it for you. Nobody breathed. I mean that literally. I could hear the ceiling fan. I could hear a neighbor's dog 2 houses down. I could hear the tiny creak of Pastor Ray's chair as he leaned forward. Maya had stopped crying in Patrice's arms. She was watching her great-grandmother with the widest, most serious eyes I had ever seen on a child. My dad grabbed the envelope and tore it open, rough and fast, the way he did everything, and pulled out what was inside. 2 things. A handwritten letter on lined notebook paper, ink faded to gray-blue in the old fold lines. And a printed document with a company logo across the top. He read the letter first. To himself. I watched his face change in real time. Anger. Then confusion. Then something I had genuinely never once seen on that man's face in 34 years. Fear. His lips moved without making any sound. Grammy Evelyn didn't wait for him. That letter is from your wife, Robert. Written in the spring of 2002. Addressed to a man named Paul Draper. I know Carol's handwriting. I've been reading her Christmas cards for 30 years. Every person at this table who's ever gotten a card from her knows it too. She paused. Let the room breathe. It says, and I've read this so many times I have it memorized, Paul, he will never find out the truth about Danny. Robert believes the boy is his, and that is all that matters now. The silence that followed was not like any other silence that night. It was the silence after a building falls. The still, dusty air before anyone figures out what's still standing. Danny's fork hit his plate. What? His voice cracked down the middle. What about me? What does that mean? My dad looked up from the letter. He looked at Danny. He looked at Mom. His jaw moved, but nothing came out. This is fake, he finally said. His hands were shaking now. You made this up. That is your wife's handwriting, Robert, Grammy Evelyn said calmly. You know it. Mrs. Henderson looked at the trembling paper in my dad's hand. She nodded. Once. Quiet. Certain. That's her writing, she said softly. But Grammy Evelyn wasn't done. She reached back into the envelope and slid out the second document, the printed one with the logo. After Harold passed, she said, I ordered a home DNA kit. Kind they advertise on TV. I swabbed myself. One evening when Danny was staying over and Robert had left his old hairbrush in the upstairs bathroom, I collected what I needed. I mailed it all in. She folded her hands on the table. 6 weeks later, I got the results. A pause that felt much longer than it was. Robert and Danny are not biologically related. Kay, I have to stop here one more time because I know what you're thinking right now. You're thinking, wait, so that means... Yes, that is exactly what it means. And I want to know your reaction. Drop it in the comments right now. Are you shocked? Did you see this coming? What are you feeling? And while you're down there, if you are not subscribed yet, please hit that button. I put out new stories every week, and this community of people who actually listen, actually care, actually show up for each other, it means everything to me. Now let me finish this. Danny made a sound I will never forget. Not a word. Not a cry. Something in between, the sound of a person's entire understanding of themselves cracking at the foundation. His chair scraped back hard. Kayla reached for his arm. He pulled away, walked out of the dining room without looking at anyone, and the back door swung shut behind him with a bang. My dad was still at the head of the table. His chair had tipped over somewhere behind him. He was holding both pieces of paper, one in each shaking hand, staring at them like they might change what they said. You went behind my back, he said to Grammy Evelyn. His voice had lost all its shape. You went behind your daughter's back for 25 years, she said. Not one degree of change in her voice. Sit down, Robert. He didn't sit. But he didn't speak either. He just stood there holding the two pieces of paper that had taken apart the story he had been living inside for over 2 decades. The story where he was the wronged man. The generous one who did his duty. The story where Danny was the real son and I was the burden. Both pieces of paper said something completely different. Sandra is Robert's biological daughter. Danny is not. Mom stood at the edge of the room, one hand on the wall, mascara starting to track down her face. I was going to tell you, she said. Her voice was thin and fraying. I always meant to tell you. You had 25 years, Mom. I was scared. Dad found out Danny wasn't his, he would have left. We would have lost everything. So you let him take it out on me instead. She didn't deny it. My dad looked at the deed transfer papers on the table, stared at them for a long moment. Then, very slowly, he set both pieces of paper down on top of them. And something went out of him, like a light switching off behind his eyes. I treated her like he couldn't finish it. For the first time in my life, I watched my dad unable to complete a sentence. Not because he was calculating his next move. 'Cause the weight of what he had done was too large and too true to put into words. Pastor Ray placed both hands flat on the table. Robert, sit down. Don't speak yet. Just sit with this. Grammy Evelyn sat back down slowly, smoothed her napkin, picked up her water glass and took one calm, steady sip. Now, she said, about this house. She looked at my dad the way a teacher looks at a student who has failed a test they had no business failing. This house has been in my name since 1966. Harold and I bought it together and the deed has never changed. You can walk into the Dallas County Clerk's office on Monday morning and verify every word of that. Whatever you paid that attorney downtown, you paid him to produce something that means absolutely nothing. My dad looked at the deed documents on the table. He didn't touch them. Your dad had a lot of hopes for you, Robert. He wanted you to be a decent man. He used to say that was the only inheritance worth leaving. She paused. We don't always get what we want. Uncle Chester exhaled long and slow. Pastor Ray closed his eyes briefly. This house stays in my name until I decide what happens to it. No one at this table, not you, not Danny, not any attorney anywhere in Dallas, changes that. My dad stared at the useless papers. His whole plan for the evening, printed and signed, sitting there meaning nothing. Grammy Evelyn turned to me. Her eyes were soft but sharp, the way old glass looks when light moves through it. Baby, this house was always meant for you and Maya. I've had it properly drawn up with my own attorney. Not the one downtown. I stood there. 15 pairs of eyes on me. Maya watching from Patrice's arms, waiting to take her cue from my face. And I shook my head. Grammy, I don't want the house. Table shifted. Not a gasp, something quieter. A recalibration. Chester tilted his head. Mrs. Henderson's eyebrows went up. I appreciate what you did tonight more than I have words for, I said. My voice held. I made it hold. But I'm not going to build my life and my daughter's life on something that came out of a fight at a dinner table. I want Maya to grow up watching me earn what we have. Grammy Evelyn looked at me for a long moment. Then a small, slow smile. You sound just like your grandfather, she said. I walked to Patrice, lifted Maya into my arms. She wrapped her legs around my waist and pressed her face into my neck. She smelled like sweet potato casserole and Patrice's vanilla lotion. I turned and looked at my dad one last time. He was still standing. Chair toppled behind him. Useless papers on the table. Hands empty at his sides. I'm your daughter, Dad, I said. Not with anger. Not with begging. Just the plain, straight truth of it. I always was. But after tonight, I don't need you to believe that anymore. I carried Maya through the dining room, through the kitchen that still smelled like everything I had cooked since 4:30 that morning, out the front door of the house on Cloverdale Road. I closed it quietly behind me. The drive home was 15 minutes. Maya fell asleep by the 4th minute, cheek warm against the car seat, fingers loose in her lap. No radio. No music. Just the Dallas highway lights coming through the windshield and the sound of my daughter breathing. When I parked at our apartment in Mesquite, I sat in the car for a while. My phone had been buzzing for 10 minutes. I finally looked. Patrice, I am so proud of you. Every word of that. Mr. Henderson from next door. Sandra, you are welcome at our table any time. God bless you, honey. 2 cousins. Tyler's wife, who I barely knew. A woman from church I'd spoken to maybe 3 times who said she was praying for us. Nothing from Dad. Nothing from Mom. I set the phone on the counter, took out a box of cereal, and ate it dry standing at the kitchen sink because I was too tired to do anything else. Quick pause before the aftermath, and trust me, the aftermath is something else. I want to know where you are watching this from right now. Drop your city and the time in the comments. I genuinely love knowing who is in this community with me. People from all over have been reaching out since I started sharing these stories, and it honestly blows my mind every single time. Also, if this story made you feel something, share it with someone you know who needs to hear it today. You never know who out there is sitting in their own version of that Thanksgiving table right now, feeling like they have to keep earning a place they were always supposed to have. Okay, back to it. Therese called Monday with the full recap. The dinner ended about 25 minutes after I left. Dad went to his bedroom and closed the door. Mom sat at the table until Mrs. Henderson walked her inside. Danny didn't come out of his room all night. Kayla was gone before 7. By Tuesday, the story was moving through Mesquite and Garland the way stories move in tight communities, fast and thorough. Teen Witnesses is the same as a broadcast. By Wednesday, the women at the salon near Cloverdale Road knew. By Thursday, the men at the hardware store on Town East Boulevard. By Friday, Pastor Ray's church secretary had fielded 5 calls from congregation members asking whether it was really true that Robert Calloway had stood up at Thanksgiving and publicly rejected his own biological daughter in front of the whole family. It was true. All of it. Dad had been a deacon at Lakeview Community Church for 11 years. He passed the offering plate. He read scripture on 5th Sundays. He sat in the 4th pew on the left side. In our community, that seat carries real weight. Pastor Ray reached out and asked Dad to come in for a conversation. Dad declined. So Ray sent a handwritten letter. Patrice told me what it said. Until you have made peace with your family, I believe it's best that you step back from church leadership. Dad lost his deacon's seat. In Mesquite, that was like losing a public office. Danny didn't speak to Dad for 3 weeks. He started pressing Mom for answers about Paul Draper, who he was, what the letter meant, what was real and what wasn't. Mom gave him partial answers. She had been perfecting those for 25 years. Dad and Mom stopped sharing a bedroom. A neighbor spotted Mom's car at a therapist's office in Garland on Tuesday mornings. Patrice confirmed she had started going. The attorney downtown sent Dad a letter explaining that the deed transfer was completely unenforceable. The property had never been in his name. He owed $1,200 in legal fees for a piece of paper that couldn't do what he needed it to do. $1,200 and a deacon's seat. That's what Thanksgiving cost him. He still hadn't called me. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving. Saturday afternoon. Maya and I were at a little ice cream shop on Buckner Boulevard in Dallas, splitting a scoop of cookies and cream. One of those warm Texas November days that makes you forget what month it is. I had an hour before my shift. The bell above the door chimed. I looked up. Danny. He saw me at the same time. He was already standing still in the middle of the room, halfway between the door and our table, hands in his jacket pockets, looking like a man who walked into the wrong place and isn't sure whether leaving or staying is the worse option. Maya looked up. Uncle Danny. He came over. Sat down across from me without asking. Didn't order anything. We looked at each other. I didn't know, he said. I need you to know I genuinely didn't know. I know. So are we still? You're still my brother, Danny. He looked down at the table. Pressed his thumbnail into the edge of it. I never thanked you, he said quietly. For the holidays. For taking care of Grammy. For all of it. You're thanking me now. He nodded. Barely. Maya leaned across the table toward him, holding out her little plastic spoon. Uncle Danny, you want some? Something broke open in his face. Kind of break that lets light in. His eyes went red at the edges. He blinked 3 times fast, took the spoon, and ate a small bite. Thanks, Maya Bug, he said. Voice uneven. It wasn't fixed. Not even close. But it was the first time Danny had ever really looked at me without our dad's voice telling him what to see. That was a start. 6 weeks after Thanksgiving. 7 in the morning. I was in the parking lot of the rehab center in Garland after a long Friday shift, eyes closed, engine off, not quite ready to drive home. My phone rang. Dad. I stared at his name through 2 full rings. Then I answered. Can we talk? His voice was different. Smaller. like someone had permanently turned the volume down. Yes, but I have conditions. Non-negotiable. He didn't argue. That alone told me something had changed. 3 rules. I laid them out slow and clear. First, he would never again say anything about my parentage in front of Maya or any child. What happened at that Thanksgiving table was the last time my daughter would hear those words from him. Ever. Second, the monthly payments were done, effective immediately. If Grammy Evelyn or Patrice watched Maya, I would arrange that directly with them. No more money going through his hands. Third, any decision about the Cloverdale Road property went through Grammy Evelyn. Not him. He had no authority there and we all knew it. Long silence. Okay, he said. One more thing. I paused. I want you to get counseling. Not for me, for you. A person doesn't do what you did at that table unless they're carrying something very heavy inside. I'm not excusing any of it. But the only way forward for any of us is if you deal with what's really there. He didn't answer right away. I heard his breathing, slow and rough, like a man admitting for the first time that what he's been carrying is too heavy to keep carrying alone. Goodbye, Dad, I said. I hung up. Drove home. Slept 5 hours. Picked up Maya. Made dinner. 3 weeks later, Patrice called, trying to sound casual, not quite pulling it off. Your dad made an appointment with a therapist in Garland, she said. Thought you should know. I was quiet for a moment. Good, I said. That was enough. 2 months after Thanksgiving, a knock at my door. No call first. No text. I looked through the peephole. Mom. Alone. Holding a shoebox against her chest with both arms, the way you hold something fragile. I opened the door. I didn't step back to let her in. She looked 10 years older than she had at that dinner table. Hair pulled back plain. No makeup. She was wearing an old brown cardigan I recognized from my childhood, the one with the big wooden buttons I used to button and unbutton when I was little and sitting in her lap. I kept these, she said. She held the shoebox out toward me. Your dad never knew. I took it. Looked inside. Photographs. Me as a newborn, red-faced and squinting at the light. Me on my first day of kindergarten in a dress Mom had sewn herself. Me at my PT graduation, grinning so wide my eyes were almost shut. She had kept them hidden all these years, like proof of a love she was never brave enough to show where anyone could see it. I know sorry isn't enough, she said. It's not. I need you to understand something, Mom. You didn't just lie to Dad. You took 25 years from me and him. Years we could have actually had. Her face crumpled. She pressed the back of her hand to her mouth. I'm not going to tell you we're okay. We're not. But Maya loves you. So Maya gets to decide if she wants to see you. Not me. Not Dad. Maya makes that call. Mom nodded. She touched the door frame for just a moment, then pulled her hand back. Turned. Walked down the stairs. I closed the door. Sat on the kitchen floor. Opened the box one more time. At the very bottom, underneath all the photographs, was one I had never seen before in my life. Me at about 3 years old, sitting on my dad's shoulders. Both of us laughing. His hands were up around my ankles and his head was thrown back, and I was reaching down to cover his eyes like we were playing a game on a regular summer afternoon. On the back, in Grammy Evelyn's handwriting, Robert and his little girl. Summer 1993. I sat on my kitchen floor in Mesquite, Texas, and looked at that photograph for a long time. Then I put it on the refrigerator. Right next to Maya's drawing of our apartment, the one where she drew me bigger than the building because she explained very seriously that is how big mommies actually are in real life. 3 months after Thanksgiving. Saturday evening. Just the 3 of us, me, Maya, and Grammy Evelyn. Grammy was making cornbread from scratch in the cottage kitchen. Maya was on her step stool beside her, stirring the batter with a wooden spoon nearly as long as her arm. Flour on both their noses. Maya singing something off-key at full volume. Grammy Evelyn humming along like every note was exactly right. I stood in the doorway and watched them. This, I thought. This is it. Not who sits at the head of the table. Not whose name is on a deed. Not who brought the right dish or said the right things. This. Flour on two noses. A 7-year-old singing off-key while an 84-year-old woman pretends she can't hear a single wrong note. This is what family looks like. After dinner, Grammy asked me to sit with her on the back porch. The old wooden swing Harold had built when Dad was a boy. Creaked under both of us the way it always had. We sat in the Texas evening listening to crickets, a distant highway, the sound of Maya talking to herself through the screen door. "You know why I waited, don't you?" Grammy said. "You needed him to show himself first." She nodded slowly. "If I had confronted him in private, he would have called me confused. He needed to do it in front of witnesses. So I made sure the truth came out in front of witnesses, too." "Were you scared?" I asked. "Every single day for 25 years, she said. We sat in the quiet for a while. Then she said, "Sandra, that house is yours whenever you're ready. Not because of blood. 'Cause you are the one who showed up. Every holiday. Every hospital visit. Every night I needed someone and you came without being asked." She rested her hand over mine. "The real kind of family isn't who you were born to. It's who keeps choosing you when they didn't have to." "I know, Grammy." She looked at me sideways with the dry little smile that could have lit a match. "And stop paying anyone $500 a month for the honor of being part of your own family." I laughed. She laughed. The swing creaked. Maya sang inside. The porch light hummed. And for the first time in my entire life, I didn't feel like a guest at a table I'd only been allowed to sit at on good behavior. I felt like I was home. I'm not telling you this story because I want your sympathy. I'm telling you this because I spent 34 years believing I had to keep earning a seat that was never going to be given to me. That if I just cooked enough, paid enough, showed up enough times without complaining, one day they would finally see me. Most of them didn't. But Grammy Evelyn did. She always had. She had been watching and waiting for 25 years, carrying that envelope in her cracked tan leather purse like a parachute she packed and saved for the day I needed it most. After that Thanksgiving, my life didn't change overnight. I still work long shifts in Garland. I still eat cereal standing at the kitchen sink some nights when I'm too tired to cook for one person. I still carry the kind of tired that sleep doesn't fully fix. But I stopped writing checks to a man who pocketed half and called it family obligation. That's $6,000 a year I kept. Enough for the deposit on our new apartment in Mesquite, where Maya finally has her own room with a window seat, mint green walls, and a bookshelf the two of us built on a Sunday afternoon while her favorite playlist played on the speaker. I stopped cooking holiday dinners for people who never once said thank you. Last Thanksgiving it was me, Patrice, Grammy Evelyn, Maya, and a store-bought pecan pie that honestly tasted better than anything I ever made at 4:30 in the morning on 3 hours of sleep. I stopped asking the question that had been living in my chest since I was old enough to know something was wrong. I stopped asking, am I enough? Not because I found the answer, but because I stopped asking the wrong people. Grammy Evelyn still watches Maya on my long work days. She won't take $1. "That's what family does," she told me once. The real kind. Dad and I have been in the same room 4 times since Thanksgiving. Short visits. Long silences. He doesn't know what to say to me, and I've decided I'm not going to teach him. But the last time he came by, he brought Maya a stuffed armadillo from the dollar store, gray and soft with a lopsided face. She named it Biscuit. She sleeps with it every single night. It's not forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not for a long time. But it's something. And something is more than I had at that Thanksgiving table. I sat on that back porch swing with Grammy Evelyn, listening to my daughter sing inside a house full of old memories and fresh cornbread on a cool Texas evening. And I thought, this is what I was looking for. This whole time. This exact thing. I just had to stop looking for it from the people who were never going to give it to me. I don't know what this coming Thanksgiving will look like. I don't know if my dad and I will ever sit at the same table without that night hanging between us like smoke. But I know one thing with everything I've got. Maya will never sit at a table where someone tells her she doesn't belong. That's my line. And I don't cross it. Before I go, I want to ask you 3 things. First, if this story touched something in you, leave me a comment below. Tell me your city and what time it is where you are right now. I read every single one. People from Texas, from New York, from the UK, from places I never expected, you all showing up here means more than you know. And if you have your own story, your own table moment, your own Grammy Evelyn, your own Thanksgiving that changed everything, share it. Someone in this community needs to hear it. Second, share this video with one person today. Just one. Someone who is quietly carrying what I was carrying. Someone who is paying $500 a month to feel like they belong somewhere. Someone who needs to know they are not crazy, they are not too sensitive, they are not the problem. Send it to them. Let it be the thing that reaches them today. Third, and this one is so simple, if you are not subscribed yet, please do it right now. Hit that button. Turn on notifications. 'Cause I put out a new story every single week and each one of them is real and each one of them is for you. This channel exists for the people who have sat at hard tables and kept showing up anyway. You belong here. I promise. Thank you for staying with me all the way to the end of this one. I'll see you next time.